Looks like we've got a fair number of people here now, which is great. And I make it 2 minutes past the hour, so we're going to get started, and we may get a few more people trickle in, but we can get started now. So hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. So the purpose of today's webinar is a getting started training with LifeQI. So what we're going to look at today is kind of the basic navigation of LifeQI, and we're really going to be focusing on the projects area. So we're going to have a look at how to start your quality improvement project in LifeQI, as well as then fill out the details of your project. So we absolutely encourage questions, so please do pop any that you may have in the chat or the Q&A box as we go through. And we've got my great colleague on the line with us, Andrew, and he'll be keeping an eye on any questions that come in. But we do love questions, so please ask anything that you may want to know. So to start, what is LifeQI? So LifeQI is an online quality improvement platform where we bring the people, the tools and the data together to help you run and track your quality improvement work. As I mentioned, the first thing we're going to look at is the basic navigation of LifeQI. So when you have signed up to LifeQI and your account has been verified, when you first log in, you're going to be greeted by your start page, and this is what you can see in front of you. So this is unique to you, and this is a way for you to get to all of the different things that you are actively participating in on LifeQI. So let's have a quick look at what that start page looks like. So at the top here, we have my name and my job role and where I work. We then have a quick view of kind of what I'm participating in on LifeQI, so my projects and where they may be on the progress score, people within my network and any discussions that I may have. We'll be able to see any notifications or requests on our start page, as well as links to our projects. So you'll be able to click through these and get into the projects that you're working on, your organization, any programs of work, discussions, dashboards, etc. So you can click on any of these and they will then take you through to that specific area. Now, bear in mind, if you're new to LifeQI and you haven't got membership to anything yet, your start page may look a little bit different, but as you do get membership to more projects or programs of work, they will absolutely show up on your start page for you. On the left-hand side of the page, we have what we call our navigation bar. Now, this is a way for you to access all the different areas of LifeQI. So you can get to your project space, programs of work, any discussions, reports, your dashboards, as well as organization and people. So by clicking on any of those, it will take you to that area in LifeQI. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're really going to be focusing on kind of the heart and soul of LifeQI, really, and that is the project area. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into the project space and see what that looks like. So by clicking on this project tab, it's then going to bring me into my project space. The first thing that you're going to notice is over here on the right-hand side of the page, it will automatically filter to my active projects. So that essentially means the projects that you are either leading on, so the ones that you have created yourself, or the ones that you may have been invited to be a member of. Now, don't worry if you go in and you haven't been invited to any projects yet, or you haven't started any projects, this may be empty, but once we start to create those projects, then you'll absolutely see them here. If you want to get into any of your projects that you've already created or you are part of, you can just click on the project there and it will take you through. What we're mainly going to look at today is how to create your quality improvement project and then how to kind of fill that in and add your driver diagram and run your PDSAs, etc. So without further ado, we're going to have start our quality improvement project. So up here on the top of the page, you're going to see the Start a New Project button. What we want to do is we want to click that, and that's then going to open up what I call kind of a setup wizard. And it's just a couple of boxes that are going to guide us through the process of creating our quality improvement project. So this is the first page that you will land on. And this is asking, what is the purpose of your project? So the first thing we need to do is we need to give our project a title. Now, today I'm going to be focusing our project on reducing pressure sores. You will have to excuse my live typing because sometimes it's not that great. So the first thing I've done is given my project a title. Now you probably noticed that that box was outlined in red. Now that's because this is a mandatory field. You do have to enter in a title in order to progress with your quality improvement project and save that. So down here, we could add in our problem statement. Once we've filled in those two, we're then going to add in what we're trying to accomplish. So our aim, and our rationale. So okay, as an example. And we can also then add in our rationale down here. Now, if you're quite new to quality improvement and you're not quite sure what to add in these boxes, we do have tooltips located throughout the platform, just give you some really helpful pointers and kind of guide you in what you should be adding into these areas. So if you click on these I buttons here, what you're going to notice, we've got some really helpful pointers around constructing a name statement, as well as a good example and a bad example of a name statement. So at any point, if you do get stuck, please take advantage of those tooltips that we have located within the platform. Now, unlike the title, the aim, the rationale, and the problem are not mandatory fields. You don't have to fill these in upon creating a project, but we do recommend putting as much detail as possible, but we can absolutely come back and edit that at a later date, which I'll show you when we've created our project. So I'm now going to jump onto the next screen, and this is where we decide who's on my project team. Is it just me within my project, or have I got colleagues working on me with this one? So what I need to do is click this Invite New Members button. Now, there's a few ways that we can invite new members. The first is if we know that they already have an account on LifeQI. What we can do is we can search for their name here. Once we've found the correct member, we can click their name. That will open up another box where we can then decide their permissions on our project. So whether we want them to have view rights, whether we want them to have edit rights, so actively participate in the project with me, or whether they want admin rights. So admin rights are effectively exactly the same as edit, apart from the fact that they can also add additional members to your project team. We can also give our colleagues a role. So it might be that Andrew is my coach or the improvement advisor. So for this one, I'm going to pop him in as my improvement advisor. I'll then click add. You'll then see that Andrew has now been added as a pending member to my project. So when I save this, he will then get an email notification saying Sophie's invited you to join this project. Please follow this link to accept. Now, it may be that not all of your colleagues have access to LifeQI. So we do actually have the ability to invite them not only to the project, but to sign up to LifeQI as well. So in the same way that I did then, I can click on invite new members. I can then click on can't find somebody. We can then add in their email address and send invite. So that will invite them to take part in my project as well as sign up to LifeQI. So once we've decided who's on our project team, we're going to jump onto the next page. Now, this is where we can kind of categorize our project. So there's two different things that we can do here. And again, this absolutely isn't mandatory, so you don't need to do it. But essentially, a priority is a organizational-wide priority. Now, not all of you may have these, okay? And some of you also may have governance workflows put into your setup project, so it may look slightly different to this. But what a priority is an organizational-wide strategic objective or priority. You have the ability to link two priorities if you have them set up on your organizational profile. So I do have a couple here. So it might be that this project is relating to improving patient experience. So I can choose that option and you can now see that it's linked to my project. We also have the ability to add tags. Now, I always explain tags as kind of like a hashtag, if you will. It's a way that you can search for projects. Like we said, it's a way you can categorize your project. So it might be to a particular theme, or as an example, I can tag it to pressure sores here. We can then add that to my project and we can search for projects that are the same. And it's just that way to kind of categorize the work. Moving on to the next page, super simple. When and where is this project taking place? So we can add in our start date and our end date. So I might be doing this for a year. And then location, it might be a specific ward as an example, okay? Once we've done that, we're going to hit create project. That's then going to save our project and take us through to the general page. So while that's saving, I'm just going to check in and see if there's been any questions so far before I move on to the next part.
Yeah, there have been a couple of questions in the chat. So there's one from Wendy asking, do you need a license for each member of the project team?
Great. Yeah, that's a really good question. So yes, so the answer is yes, you absolutely do. So the way it works is that every user that signs up to LifeQI is assigned a license. Okay, so when they sign up, that will go through to the admins of your organization to verify and assign that license to the user.
Thank you. And another question from Yinka. Are the roles static, or can we define project roles?
That's also a very good question. So we do have the ability to add additional roles to LifeQI, and if you do have any that are specific to your organization, I would highly recommend getting in touch with your success manager or with the help desk, and they'll absolutely be able to kind of input those to LifeQI for you. Okay.
And one final question from Athena. Can the members, their roles, or the time frame on the project be changed?
Yes, great question. Absolutely. So on the time frame, I'll show you that kind of really quickly. So we're now on our project general page. Okay, so our project is saved, and there's a couple of things I'll show you while showing you the dates. So as I mentioned earlier, when we are creating our project, if you don't know all the detail yet, that's fine. We can change it at a later date. So in order to do that, we can simply click the edit button here. You're then going to notice that my dates are editable. So you can come in here and you can absolutely update those dates if you need to. And you can also add in more detail here as well, okay? Now, the other question in regards to project roles, yes, absolutely. As an admin of the project, you will be able to do that. So through the members panel on the right-hand side of the screen here, if I click that open, what I can then do is click on the member that I want to change their role, hit the edit button, and we can then change that role there, okay? So as long as you're the admin of the project, you can absolutely do that as well. Great. Well, I hope that was helpful and answered your questions. So I'm going to go on to kind of the next bit now, and then we'll stop in a minute and see if there's any further questions. So as I mentioned, this is our project general page. So this is where we can see the details of the project that we've just entered when we created our project. As I showed you, down the bottom, we have the details section where we've got our title, problem, aim, and we can absolutely come in and edit that. Now, along the middle here, we have what I call a glance bar. So this is a really quick, easy way for you to be able to see what is happening within your project. We've obviously just started this, so there's not much detail, but you'll be able to see if we've got a driver diagram, how many measures and charts we may have, and how many PDSAs we may have as well. So as we fill this out, you're going to see this come to life a little bit. Now, probably the most important part of this glance bar is the project progress score. So the project progress score is based on the IHI progress score scale. It's a scale from 0.5 to 5.0 in 0.5 increments. And this is a way for you to be able to say where your project is in its life cycle. So as an example, are we still in the design phase? Are we only really, we're not testing changes yet. We're not really doing anything. We're kind of still just designing our project. So you might be scoring anywhere from a 0.5 to a 2. How are we starting to test changes and see improvement? So that's what that score is used for. And I do hammer this home quite a lot, but as you progress your project, it's down to you and the project team to update the progress score to reflect where you are. Now, it's really, really simple. All you need to do is click the change score button. You're then going to be able to see the different scores here. It doesn't matter if you're not 100% sure what these mean, because we do have the definitions in LifeQI. So you can click on them and you can see what that score means and then change it accordingly, okay? So I'm going to change it to a 1.5 to say that the planning for the project has begun. I simply hit change score. That will then update within my glance bar, okay? Now, you're also going to notice we've got some super helpful kind of in-app prompts here, and these are just guiding you to kind of the next steps that you could do. If you want to get rid of them, just hit ignore, that's no problem. So the first thing that we're going to look at is building out our driver diagram. So along the top, you'll see these tabs, and this is how we access the different areas of our quality improvement project. So I've come into my driver diagram space. Now you can see here that I don't have one yet, but we're going to start building it out. So all I need to do is hit that edit button. We're then going to be able to add in our primary and secondary drivers as well as our change ideas. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to get so frustrated in like PowerPoint or something where you're trying to get all the boxes the same and align them, and it was just a bit frustrating. So hopefully you'll find it a lot easier to create your driver diagrams in LifeQI. First of all, I need to add my primary drivers. All I need to do is click this cross button here, and you'll see that my first primary driver is added. If I want to add another one, I can click that plus button again, and so on and so forth. You can now see that we have 3 primary drivers listed here. Okay, we can then type in here and add in the text that we need to. We can then add in our secondary drivers in exactly the same way. We just click that plus button there, and we have our secondary drivers. Now you can absolutely add multiple drivers. So let me just show you what I mean quickly. So say, for example, on this primary driver here, I wanted a couple of secondary drivers coming off of it. I would just click that button, the plus button again, and you can see that I have an additional secondary driver. Now, in the same way that we did with all of the others, we click that plus button in order to add in our change ideas. Okay, so super quick and super easy. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm a super visual learner. I like to be able to really quickly and easily understand what's happening on a page. And I find sometimes the black of the driver diagram quite hard to kind of interpret. So I tend to color code my driver diagrams. In order to color code, the first thing that we need to do is dictate the colors that we want to use. In order to do that, we're still in edit mode. So we're still in edit on the driver diagram. We're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and we're going to click this manage colors button. We can now choose the colors that we want to label our driver diagram. Now, I'm not going to be very imaginative today. I do apologize, and I'm going to choose these 3 colors and give them labels of primary, secondary, and change ideas just for ease. Okay, but you can absolutely add whatever labels you want. Once we've chosen those, we click done. We can now see that my key is at the bottom of the page. Coming back to my driver diagram, I can now color code. All I need to do is hit this choose a color button. I can then choose the relevant color that I've just picked. Okay, so I can come through. I can then change the color of my drivers and my change ideas. Okay. Now, if the text is a little bit hard to read on that background, you can click this AA button here and it will change the font color to black so it stands out a little bit more. Okay. So once you've created your driver diagram and color coded it if you want, you simply click save and hey presto, we have our driver diagram. You can see at the bottom we have our key, we have the nice visual here. Now you'll also notice that through this actions button, we can absolutely export the image of our driver diagram if we want to take that off LifeQI and share it with people that aren't on LifeQI, or maybe put it in a poster or pin it up in your staff room. Okay. Now, just a couple, one other thing to show you that I kind of forgot to mention. So you do have the ability to pin your driver diagram multiple ways. So for example, this change idea here, it might not actually just be linked to this secondary driver. It might also be linked to this one down here. So in order to do that, we hit this pin button and then we can pin it to where it needs to be. And you'll see that it's now connected in multiple ways. Now, if you've made a mistake, just pin it, click that pin button and press that cross button, and it will then get rid of that pin for you. Okay, so you can do this for the change ideas to your secondary drivers, and you can also do this for your secondary drivers through to your primaries as well. Okay, perfect. So the next thing we're going to look at is the measures and charts section. Just going to really quickly check in with Andrew and see if there was any questions on driver diagrams before I move on.
We did have one question about the linking of multiple, say, secondary drivers to, secondary driver linking it to multiple primary drivers, which I think you just answered there, Sophie. So thank you for
Perfect.
that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Perfect. Okay, so now the measures and charts section. So this is where we're going to be outlining what we're measuring as part of our quality improvement project and also adding in our data. So the first thing that we need to do is create our measure. And this is where we define what it is that we're actually going to be measuring, okay? So up here, we're going to hit this new measure button. From here, we now fill in the details. So as you can see, the title and the measure type are mandatory. So this might be number of patients with pressure sores. Okay. Now, measure type, is it an outcome, a process, or a balance measure? And just to highlight the tooltips again, if you're not quite sure what these are, please do use those tooltips and it will give you some nice pointers. So for this one, I'm going to do a outcome measure. Now, this is where we'd add in our operational definition. So what is it that we're trying to measure? Now, I'm not going to be setting a very good example. I'm going to leave some of this blank in the interest of time today, but essentially that's where you'd add in your operational definition. You'd then add in your data collection plan. So what, where, who, when. So what data are you collecting? How are you collecting it? Who's collecting it? And when are you collecting it? Okay. Now, the two most important things in LifeQI when you are setting up a measure is choosing your chart type and choosing your data collection frequency. Now, the reason that I say these are the most important is once you have created your measure, these are the only things that you are unable to change, okay? So if you start with a run chart and go, oh, actually, I want to change that to a P chart, we would need to create a new measure, okay? So the first thing we should do is what chart type are we using? Do we want to use a run chart or do we want to use a control chart? Now, there are different charts that you can use in LifeQI. And if you're like, I'm not quite sure, or you just kind of want to check what you think, do use this need help choosing a chart kind of cheat sheet here, if you will. And what that will do, it will give you a rundown of all of the charts we have in LifeQI, what they are, typical examples of how they're used, and the types of data to capture. Okay, so you can come through here, you can have a look at the different chart types and decide which one you're going to use. For this example, I'm just going to use a run chart. And then the data collection frequency. So how often are we going to be entering this data into LifeQI? Are we going to be entering it in daily, weekly, monthly? It might be a sporadic data set. So sometimes you're collecting it twice a week. Sometimes you might not be getting it for a month. That's where you'd use custom unknown. So do just think about how often you're going to be capturing this data. For this example, I'm going to do monthly. Once we've defined that, we go on to the next page. And this is where we can start to see how we can really bring everything together within our quality improvement projects. We can start to link things, okay? So I can now link a driver or my aim and link that one to my measure. And then we hit the Create Measure button. Once we've created that measure, it's going to take us into our measure, as you can see here. So just to give you a little bit of navigation, we can see that I'm within my projects, the Reducing Pressure Sores project, I'm within my measures and charts section, and I'm within my number of patients with pressure sores measure. You can get back to the measures list through this link up here. Then you'll notice down here we have the title of the measure type, and the chart type we have, okay? The first tab is our charts tab. Now we haven't added any data yet, so we don't have any charts. But then across here on the plan tab, this is where you can see all of the details for the measure. You can also edit, as I mentioned earlier, add in more details, but we can't change the chart type or the data collection frequency. So now for the fun part, let's add in our data. So coming back to the charts tab along the top here, we have two ways of adding in our data. We can do this manually, so row by row, or we can do this kind of copying and pasting in Excel. So I'm going to show you both ways. So first of all, let me show you what it looks like to add it. I'm just getting my other screen ready. Sorry, I'm not looking away. To add in manually. So we click this add a chart button here. We can then give our chart a name. We then click add row. Okay, so this is how you do it manually. You would then choose your date and add in your value. And you'd keep clicking the add a row button until you've added in all your data points. Okay. So that's the first way. So let me add a few more data points. Then we can create a second chart. And we'll do that using Excel. So once we've added in our data, you hit create chart. That LifeQI is then going to automatically create that run chart for you. Click it open, we can see I there have my run chart and my data table at the bottom. Now, you may have been capturing baseline data or data outside of LifeQI and have it in Excel somewhere, and we do have the ability to copy and paste in from Excel. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So in the same way that we did before, we can add in a chart. We can give it a name. Now we're going to add a row, but we're going to leave that blank. Now what I'm going to do from there is I'm going to come over to my Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully you can see that, okay? Now this is where I've got my kind of baseline data that I've been capturing. So I then need to copy that and bring it over to LifeQI. So I've got a run chart with a data collection frequency of monthly. So one thing to note is that LifeQI is going to want you to copy data in the same format that LifeQI is expecting it. So I've got my months here and my value here, and that's how it looks in LifeQI. So that's what I'd need to copy in. So I'm going to highlight that and copy it. I'm then going to come back to LifeQI. I'm going to right click in that empty date box there, and I'm going to paste it over, and you can see that all of my data then gets brought over to LifeQI. I then simply click create chart, and I have my second run chart here. Okay. You will also notice that LifeQI will automatically kind of highlight any special cause variation that you may have, so any shifts, trends, outliers, etc. within your data. Now, if I want to come in next month and add more data, I would navigate to the measure that I want to go to. I would click on the chart. Then all I'd need to do is hit edit, come down, add a row, and then add my next data point. LifeQI will then want you to redraw the chart, and we've then got our next data point in. Okay, then just click save. All right. Now, just two more things to show you. I'm not doing deep dive on charts today, so it's very much the basics of it. But I just want to show you that with the actions button in the top here, you can absolutely export your data sheet. So take that information off LifeQI and it will come out as a CSV, or you can export an image of it as well. So you can pull an image off of that chart. Okie doke. So coming back to my measures list, we can now see I have my first outcome measure. There's no limit on how many measures that you create, so create as many as you need. But what we're going to do is we're going to come through to the PDSA section now, okay? And we're going to have a look at how to create our PDSAs and what the PDSA kind of looks like in LifeQI. So similar to the measures and charts section, we need to create our PDSA. So up here, we're going to click this new PDSA ramp. Now, this is going to give us that nice little setup wizard, which is going to guide us through the process of creating our PDSA. So let's give our PDSA a title. Okay. What's the aim? What's the purpose? What are we trying to achieve with this PDSA? And now, which change ideas does it link to? So this is quite an important part, actually, because when you link your PDSA to a change idea, you can absolutely see on your driver diagram which PDSAs are linked. So let me link one, and then I'll show you that when we've created our PDSA. So on to the next page, who is responsible for this PDSA? Is it me? Is it someone else in my project team? So is it actually Andrew that's running this? And when is it happening? You know, when does it start? and where, again, a specific ward if applicable. Now, jumping onto the next screen, what is the plan? What are we going to do? And we can also create tasks. So I find this particularly handy because I'm the kind of person that has like millions of to-do lists all over the place, and I get a little bit confused sometimes. So I find it really helpful to build out my task list within my PDSA. So everything relating to this project is in one place. I can keep on top of it, and I can also assign those tasks to other people within my team and then be able to tell when they have completed those as well. So you would just click add a task. You would then put in the title, the notes relating to that task, who's responsible for that task, and the due date. Okay. No limit. You can come in, you can add as many as you want, and you can also add them later on when you've created the PDSA as well. Jumping on to the next screen. So what do we think will happen? So our prediction, and then we can link in our measures as well, if applicable. Okay. Once we filled out all that, we simply click the save button. That's then going to direct us to our PDSA within LifeQI. And this is what our PDSA looks like. So just going back to some navigation, we have, we're in projects, this project within our PDSA section, and we're within our PDSA of introduction of new beds, okay? We can see that we are currently on cycle 1 of 1. So we do have the ability to ramp PDSAs in LifeQI. So for example, if we had kind of gone through this, so we've started our PDSA, we've done it. Now, you know, we're doing the do, study, act. So what happened? How did it compare? And what's next? Now, say if what's next is we actually want to adapt this PDSA. So there's just slight tweaks that we want to make to it, and we want to run a new cycle, so essentially ramping that PDSA. You can absolutely do that in LifeQI, okay? So let me just write in this, and then we're going to adapt, okay? So once we've added in our do, study, act, and we've said, okay, we do want to adapt this slightly, down at the bottom here, we can click this new cycle button. That's then going to take us through exactly the same process that we've just been through to create our PDSA, but we can make slight tweaks to the aim and to the prediction and whatever may need to be changed, and then that will create our new cycle. So let me just come through and do that really quickly. I won't change much, but as you'll see, we're coming through, changing anything we need to. We're then going to create that. And once that's created, what you'll notice is we're now on cycle 2 out of 2, okay? So it's housed within one area, and you can see how many cycles are run within that PDSA ramp. If we want to jump between cycles, click that actions button, and then we can go back to our previous cycle and see what happened in cycle 1. So we've got our plan section at the top. We can make any changes by clicking edit. We have our measure that we're linked to. Then we have our do, study, act element at the bottom, and we can absolutely edit there as well. Okay. Now just coming over onto the tasks tab, just to show you what it looks like. You can see I've got my first task there. I can tick it off, and I can come in and I can build out more tasks as and when I need to as well. Okay. So just coming back to my PDSA list, just to show you what that looks like. So you can now see that I have my PDSA introduction of new beds here. We can see it's got 2 cycles at the bottom, and that's also shown through these nice kind of images here. We have 1 completed cycle, so all of these kind of segments are filled out, and then we've got an incomplete cycle, and you can see that by those being slightly grayed out there, okay? Now, as you add more PDSAs, they will be organized by kind of which change idea they're linked to. So you'll see change idea here and the name of the change idea. All right. Similar to measures, there's absolutely no limit on how many you can add. You can add as many PDSAs as you want and as many cycles within one ramp as you need as well. So I'm just going to jump back to my driver diagram and show you what I mean when I said about the linking, okay? So back into my driver diagram tab along the top, what you'll notice is down here on my change 3, my change idea 3, I have 1 linked PDSA ramp. Now, this is a really good way for you to understand, see kind of that holistic view of the project, like what is linked to what. Now, if I click on that change idea there, it's going to show me that this PDSA is linked, and it's also another way for you to access that PDSA. So if I then clicked on that PDSA ramp there, it would bring me through to the specific PDSA. Okay. Now, just a couple of other things that I want to show you before I kind of finish up and pause for some questions. Now, I'm just going to come back to my general page here. So earlier, our glance bar looked a little bit bare, but you can now see it's come to life a bit. You can see that we've got a driver diagram. You can see that we've got one measure and two charts in it, and we have one PDSA ramp with two cycles in, okay? On the right-hand side of the page, we have our members panel. Now, this earlier is where I showed you how to kind of edit someone's role after you've created the project, but it's also where you can add more members. So as your project progresses, if your project team expands, you can absolutely add them kind of retrospectively, simply by clicking on the members panel there, inviting new members, and then adding them to the project. Here we have what I call the timeline function. Now, this is really good if at a glance you want to see what's happened when to the project. So when PDSAs were added, when measures were added. Now, one thing I like to point out, because I find this a really good thing to do on projects, and I do this quite regularly on my projects. So we can add status updates to the timeline. And this is a really good way of kind of quickly and easily showing any progress that we've had, especially in this time where people are working different shifts or we're not always in the same location together. We can absolutely add status updates to our timeline so the rest of our team can kind of see what's happening. So click on that add timeline button. We can then choose status update. We can then add in what our status update may be. So training was held, etc., etc. The date of that status update, we can then add that through to our timeline here. Okay. The other thing to point out is we have this documents area. So you can upload documents to LifeQI that might be relevant to the project. You can create folders. So it might be that you have kind of data that you want to add, but I would say that you're not allowed to upload any patient identifiable information to LifeQI, but you can create folders or you can just upload files directly to LifeQI as well. And then the other thing we have is this super handy megaphone icon. So if you want to write kind of a question to your project team or let them know that you've done something, whatever it might be, you can type in here, you can attach a file if you want, and you can notify the project team. So on the first posting of this, everyone will get an email, and it will also create a project notice board where all of you will be able to actively participate within a discussion together. Okay. Now, I'm very aware, and I always feel quite bad that I go through so much in a short space of time, but I'm really hoping that that was helpful and kind of helped you get a little bit more around navigation, how to fill out your project. Now, before I go on to questions, I just want to point out a couple of resources for you. So we are absolutely here to help you. We want to ensure that you are getting the most out of LifeQI and you feel comfortable using it. And we do understand that sometimes it can be a bit daunting when you're learning kind of a new software or when you haven't been in there for a while. So there are a couple of ways that you can access different resources that LifeQI have. The first is obviously our webinars. So we do run a getting started every single month. So if you want to come on a refresher, please do, just book on. But we also have a plethora of help articles. Located throughout the platform on every single page, there's this blue Get Help With link. So if we're on the projects page or the driver diagram page, we'll see this Get Help With link up here. Now, if I click on that, that is going to take me through to the relevant area of the Help Center. So you'll be able to find help articles for everything on the system. And each help article has step-by-step instructions. Some have full tutorial videos, so kind of 3 to 10-minute videos showing you how to do things. And the majority of them also have just kind of GIFs, short videos to show you what to do. So come in here, and it might be that you've forgotten how to invite your team to a project. you can click on that and you'll see that we've got a nice video here and step-by-step instructions. So do utilize the Help Center, okay? And you can search for answers in this bar as well. Now, the other thing we have is our brilliant help desk team. They are on hand to answer any questions, whether it's technical issues or whether it's just you've forgotten how to do something. So in LifeQI, you should be able to see this blue speech bubble icon here. If you click on that, you can create a ticket, you can give feedback. We love feedback, so please do. You can search the help articles, or you can start a live chat. That will route you to one of our fabulous help desk team who are on hand to answer any questions that you may have and guide you through the use of LifeQI. Okay, so do take advantage of those if and when you need any help. So I feel like I've probably spoken at you enough. So I'm just kind of going to stop there. I'm also just going to quick say we do have an email to the Help Centre as well. So we'll pop that in the chat. But Andrew, have there been any questions or anything that I've missed that people would like to see in the kind of last 3 minutes we have?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions on measures. So Eva's asking, how do you edit a measure? Or what can you edit on a measure? So if you could show something on that. And then Wendy's also asking if you need to attach a measure to multiple drivers. Can you do that?
Okay, great. Good questions. So I'll tackle the first one around editing first. So let me just come back to show you the navigation. So I came to my measures and charts area. I clicked into my measure. I'm now within my measure that we created earlier. So if we want to edit any of the details, we need to come through to this plan tab here, okay? Now, hit edit details, and we can then edit kind of our operational definition, our title, our data collection plan, and the measure type. As I mentioned, we can't change the chart type or the collection frequency. So if you wanted to make it an edit, say you wanted to change it from a monthly to a weekly collection frequency, we would then need to set up a new measure and then delete the old one, okay? And as an admin, you do have, if you are the admin of your project, you will have the ability to delete the measures and delete the charts, but you can change everything on a measure apart from those two things within this plan tab here, okay? Now, with the second question, in the same place in our plan section, and when we're with edit, click that link driver button, and we can then add more drivers as we need to here. Okay, and you'll then see them being added to your measure. They will also then show up on your driver diagram as one linked measure in the relevant boxes. Just ensure that when we've made any changes, we click save. Okay. I hope that was helpful. Any other questions, Andrew?
This is one on PDSAs about whether you can link PDSAs to more than one change idea.
Currently, that isn't possible, I'm afraid. So we can only link to one change idea on a PDSA at the moment.
Thank you. And then I guess final question is about adding a link to external documents rather than uploading documents separately. So can they add a URL or link somewhere in the system?
Great question. So if it's a URL, I would recommend either posting the URL within kind of a notification here within the megaphone, or uploading it on a Word document to the documents area. So we can't just do URLs directly to the document area, but we could upload it on a Word document within that document area, or as I mentioned, just pop it as a message on this megaphone icon here. Okay. Great. Well, that's kind of time for today, but I really, really hope that that was helpful. And I'm aware that you've all got things to do and, you know, probably want to get off for the evening. So we'll wrap up there. But if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you so, so much for joining us today, and really hope it's been helpful, and can't wait to see all of your projects in LifeQI soon.